That's the only thing he does is, you know, work around the committees. I was going to say, you spend time together.
Oh, it was 360. I was like, girl, on the pedal
But I knew she was decent. Bigger things.
Couple, we never use it, like 5 minutes or whatever you start. We'll just be chilling over there, let me know.
I go up in script. Ai, kamera. Kamera. Kua kā tēnei. Ai te rongo, wapai. Kai te whare tēnā tātou tēnei ahi ahi. O tira, Kia whakaarohia te hunga mate rātau I tangi hia. I utai nā tiki runga o tūranga waiwai ki te aroaro te kuini. I ngā rangi kua tahake. Ngā mate o te wā koutou. Kia koutou, tātou te hunga ora kia tātou. Tihei mauri ora I te whara. Ka te rangi tāne, te mana o te whenua, tēnei ka mihi. Tēnei ka mihi ngā huatanga kua whakatūwherangia e koutou. Hei paenga mo tēnei hui, tēnei pō, me te wānanga. E haere ake nei, te pupuri tonu I ngā wāri Māori tēnei ka mihi. O tira, kai a kuranga tira, tēnā hoki koutou. Koutou, kai te mura o te atu. Nō reira, kia mōhio hoki koutou. Aha koa, whātakau ana ke pēr ngā tūru kei kone. Kai tua noa atu te whātakau tangata, kai muri a koutou. E noho nei hei hikurua mō koutou, kai o kutani wha tēnā koutou. A kāti, ka nui e rā kōrero, tēnei te mihi kia tātou kua hui mai tēnei pō. Hei whakatūwhera I tā tātou hui kia pēnei pēr tā tātou karakia. Tīkina te pūtake o ngā kōrero te wānanga, tīkina te hautapu o ngā riki kauwhatatia e tāne ki runga ki tēnei huihuinga, ki runga ki tēnei whakaopetitanga, ki runga ki tēnei whakaminenga. Kia koi te matapunenga, kia maiangi te matapu I hoiho. Kāti e tāne whakamaua kia tīna. Haumi e hui e. Atukuna te rā.
E mihi ana ki a koe te tūngani mo I whakatūwhera I tō tātou nei kaupapa o te ahiahi nei, kia rere pai ai te wairua I wainga I a tātou. E mihi ana. O tira, e mihi ana ki a koutou, kua tai mai I te pōnei, ki te whakarongo ki nei kai kōrero, koirawa atu, miharo atu. Ai, tēnā koutou. Ko Waio, ko Chelsea tōku ingoa, ko te kai whakataki o te kaupapa nei. Huri tēnei no ngā tirau ko Aotearoa ki te tonga tēnā koutou. Kia ora, hello. Hi. How excited are we? Pretty good turnout. There's still some seats available up front if anyone wants to crawl forward, get a little bit closer. Pai tērā. I'm really excited to just get stuck into it and introduce our first speaker of the night. As we all know, we're here to talk about Māori Wards, and I'm really excited to hear from these awesome speakers that we have lined up tonight, and to hear from some different perspectives as well. Nā reira, our first awesome speaker is Dame Dr. Farah Palmer. Tēnā koe. Kia ora.
Ko waia hau, ko waia hau. Ko hene ahuone, ko hene titama, ko hene nui te pō ki te whaiao, ki te ao mara mai. Mauri ki te rangi, me te whenua, ngā kapua whakapipi, mai ngā mau ngā titi ai. Kia ora everyone. I hope you don't mind me starting that way because I thought it was quite appropriate considering the kaupapa of tonight, but also the Black Ferns are playing at the moment. And this was a haka that we had composed by Whetū Tapuae back when I was playing, and it's so amazing and wonderful to see that they still do that haka. And it has a lot of meaning for me, and I thought the meaning of it was really related to what we're talking about tonight. So I say, who am I? Who am I? I am a descendant from Hine Ahuone, Hine Titama, and Hine Nui Te Pō. And they, for us, went on a journey from coming from the darkness to the world of enlightenment. And like gathering clouds, we gather our mauri, our energy, from the sky and from the whenua, and we gather together over the tallest mountain. And the tallest mountain is the biggest kind of like challenge, a big kaupapa. And it's because of that that we are all united and we will achieve what we're aiming to achieve. So I feel at this moment in time like I'm probably the least expert on this topic, but I wanted to share with you my experiences in the sporting space that might help you to kind of understand from a different perspective. As gathering clouds, we'll all have different perspectives and figure out if that is something that might resonate with you. So I stand here as a proud wahine with whakapapa Pākehā on my dad's side and whakapapa Māori on my mum's side. My mum has whakapapa to Maniapoto and Waikato, and as you may know, there's a lot going on in Piopio at the moment, and that's where I grew up. So that's where I grew up on that marae, with my nana and my kōrero who were Māori. So I feel like my first 7 to 10 years of my life was very much in te ao Māori. And then my mum and dad got back together again. Piopio's a small place. And we moved onto a farm, on a sheep and beef farm with my dad. And I got introduced to the Pākehā side of my whakapapa. So I've always felt like I've had a foot in both worlds. And am really, really appreciative of the fact that I started in the Māori world. So I feel like that is kind of like setting me up, not as an expert, but somebody who has lived experience. So I just wanted to talk about whakapapa whānau and kaupapa whānau. So I've just explained my whakapapa whānau, but my kaupapa whānau has definitely been in that sporting realm. I've always had a kind of sporting focus from a young age, and I went on and played rugby for New Zealand, and for that reason, that's kind of become my kaupapa whānau. And I also have really loved learning, which is my academic whānau. I'm passionate in both of these realms about people achieving their potential, be that academic or athletic, be that in the ballroom or the boardroom, be that as a follower or a leader. I just want everybody to achieve their potential or potential. However, let's be honest, over hundreds of years, the system has made it challenging for some of us in Aotearoa to envision or enact those dreams, to pursue the highest peaks. And this is due to many things that I'm sure you're all aware of: the te tiriti o Waitangi breaches, institutionalised racism, indoctrination, alienation, assimilation, to see ourselves as less than or deficit. These are just to name a few of the barriers and things that don't allow us to reach our potential. So that's why I decided to pursue opportunities to get around the decision-making tables in sport and tertiary success. That was to ensure that Māori voices, mana wahine voices, aspirations and outcomes would be part of the decision-making process. I wanted to not only see Māori on the rugby fields, on the netball courts and in softball diamonds as athletes, but I also wanted to see them around the C-suite, around the boardroom and around the decision-making tables, wherever those were. So how did I think about that happening? I tried to take on as many leadership roles as I could at Piopio College. There weren't that many. And I knew that I had to go from Piopio to PhD in order to get that mana in many different realms. I am a product of the representative initiatives of the 1990s. By the time I was thinking about going to university, my mum and dad separated again. And my mum was a single parent. And there was no way I was going to be able to go to university if I didn't get a scholarship. And there was a Maniapoto scholarship. And my mum went round with her plastic bag all around places trying to find scholarships for me. And she found one at the Maniapoto Trust Board. And it was a scholarship to go to phys ed school at Otago University and become a PE teacher. This was a scholarship that was part funded by the Hillary Commission and Maniapoto Trust Board. So I took that opportunity. I took that space. Just like you do on the rugby field, if a space opens up in front of you, you take it. And this opportunity was handed to me by my mother, who'd literally walked the streets to try and find this opportunity for me. And so I said, yes, I'll go there. So I went on and I felt like an imposter at university, but I kept going because I had all of these aspirations in my mind. I had these moimoia in my head. I had my mum and my family, my whānau behind me. So I did my Bachelor of Phys Ed Education with honours, and then I got an opportunity to do my PhD. The whole time in the back of my head, I was thinking about getting around those decision-making tables. Of course, I also discovered that women could play rugby, and so that's what I did as a kind of a side gig. And that, believe it or not, became the way that I could get more attention for the things that I was really passionate about. And this was at a time when the black ferns started to get a little bit more attention. So I was a rugby player for 10 years as the captain. I tried coaching, I was hopeless at it. I leave that to my husband to do the coaching now. And I tried media, I was hopeless at that when I was doing Te Atarangi. I used to try and be on that show. I was hopeless at that. And then I found my space that I could contribute to, and that was in governance. So once again, a space opened for me to get onto the New Zealand Rugby Board. I'd been on the Māori Rugby Board for about 5 or 6 years, and that's where I kind of earned my stripes, learnt my trade, and then a gap opened up on the New Zealand Rugby Board. This was at a time of crisis for the New Zealand Rugby Board. They had that issue with the whole Chiefs and the stripper gate, and they thought, what's a good way of solving this? Let's put a woman on the board. I happen to tick 2 diversity boxes, women and being Māori. But once again, everyone said, oh, you don't want to be tokenistic. No, that wasn't my reason for saying yes. I wanted to get on there and change it. So I said yes, I put my name forward, and I got onto the board. I remember that very first meeting, getting in there, feeling totally alienated, but I got around that board table and I started to try and change things. I was on that board for 8 years. And I always had this in the back of my mind. Someone had to be the first, but I didn't want to be the last, so I had to do a good job, and I didn't want to be the only. So I had to work in partnership with Māori and Pākehā and all of our rugby stakeholders to try and bring about change. Māori in some regions in rugby, we know, are overrepresented on the fields, but not around the decision-making table. So we started to create opportunities for more Māori to see themselves in those decision-making roles, and women as well. I've seen firsthand how unconscious bias, and sometimes conscious bias, determines what gets resource and what doesn't. I've seen that around the board table. And without somebody to challenge that, without someone who has a well-informed argument that's based on lived experience, without someone who has access to that genuine, authentic community voice that is often marginalised or silenced, and without someone who has bravery and confidence to speak up, nothing will change. While on the New Zealand Rugby Board, I achieved some things. I didn't achieve everything I wanted to achieve, but I achieved some things. I created a greater partnership and presence for the New Zealand Māori Rugby Board around strategic and decision-making moments. I enhanced the protection of taonga in rugby from a te ao Māori perspective. Things like the haka, and you all saw the paua haka and how that was kind of a challenge in that space as well. We played a key role in that. I encouraged more Māori to participate in leadership roles, locally, provincially, nationally and internationally. I was part of reviewing constitutions, organisations, being a part of New Zealand Rugby taking on private equity investment. I was involved in provincial governance and events, and I learnt about the commercial arm of the game. This has not only benefited Māori, but all stakeholders and supporters of rugby. So just because you have a Māori representative in a kind of governance role doesn't mean that no one else benefits, just Māori, everyone benefits. When I decided to step down from the Māori Rugby Board, and that's why I've got so many grey hairs, in 2024, there were 4 women on the board. I was the first woman on the board, so there are now 4 women on the board. And at one point there were 3 Māori on the board, 1 Pacifica and 1 Sri Lankan. So we increased diversity around that board table. That allowed diversity of thought, experiences, ways of perceiving the world and solving problems to become part of that collective wisdom. So in closing, I just want to use another part of a waiata that we also had for the black ferns. My voice ain't that great. Taumata puke angi tu whaia, he ora whakapiri, he materiri, Mauritiū, Māori ora, Māori noho, Māori mate, tū mai rā I tō mana e hine. So pursue the peaks of success, where there is strength in unity and defeat in anger. A life force lacking vitality is weakness. A life force that has Māori is going to lead to success. So stand tall and with pride, women and men. Kia ora. Thank you.
Tēnā koe tūri o hine ahuone, o hine tītama, o hine nui te pō, tēnā koe. I think what really stood out for me was by speaking about your own career, you embodied perfectly the benefits that Māori Wards bring to the table. The way that you spoke to the fact that having more Māori on the board table at the board level, having a differing perspective is beneficial for all, and it can only add, having diversity only adds and is only beneficial. And that's the exact same thing that our Māori Ward councillors do, is they speak for all within their district, while also being able to ensure that the needs and challenges faced by Māori are spoken to. Nā reira, tēnā koe. What a career as well, my gosh, holy. Let's say that first of all, wow. Next up, we have one of our awesome General Ward councillors and former local police officer. Wow. Tēnā koe, Councillor Pat Handcock.
Kia ora koutou, and I just really want to start tonight just by acknowledging the other speakers here tonight. Dame Farah, thank you very much for your inspiring kōrero there. Ranjita, Dr. Ranjita, Councillor Bridget Bell, who I've known for the current term of council, obviously Deputy Mayor Farah Deb, and also obviously our Mayor Grant Smith, who's going to be here a little bit later on. I just also want to acknowledge mana whenua rangitānei, upon whose whenua our city and our community has been built. I am Pākehā, you might be able to tell. I'm in my 70th year, and I've been a city councillor now for 2 terms, and I was a police officer for 44 years. And I'm standing here and I'm actually quite overawed by the calibre of people here. We've got the Pāti Māori, we've got Greens, we've got a councillor or an aspiring councillor here in Nelson. We've got some people here from the Labour Party. We've got some really, really good people here tonight. And I'm sure that we're all going to be supportive, and we're actually going to activate our community to make sure that going into this election we really give our Māori Ward the biggest push that we possibly can. I joined the police in 1974, and I worked in Hawke's Bay, Auckland, Otahuhu, Otara, West Auckland and Palmerston North. So I've worked in fairly busy locations where at times there have been many challenges. I was the area commander here in Palmerston North from 2003 to 2014. And I've also worked offshore in Timor-Leste, where I have supported the development of a community policing project over there. And I've just recently returned from a two-week visit over there. And I might just touch on Timor-Leste a little bit later on, because that's another story about colonisation, which we should not let pass without some comment this evening. Tonight we're here to talk specifically around Māori Wards. And why it is critical that we actually win this referendum. This is a conversation about equity and fairness, and it's about uplifting our community. We've had a Māori Ward for just 1 term. This term we have benefited from including Te Ao Māori perspectives, making decisions that consider both present and future generations. It's a mokopuna perspective that our Māori Ward councillors actually bring to the table. And I just really do acknowledge Pa Rowley, who's here tonight as well, who's one of our Māori councillors. And also we have got Fire down here, Bonnie, who's actually she's actually standing this year as well. So anyway, so where are we at the moment? And I apologise to some of you because some of the things which I'm going to talk about this evening are raw. You know, they are the truths that New Zealanders have to face up to. The notion that we live in an equitable state where everyone has the same advantages is a nonsense. And the direction of the coalition government is purposefully working to undermine not only te tiriti, but also other enabling mechanisms and legislation that have been designed to support the empowerment and the potential of Māori in Aotearoa. In the shadow of the failed review of the Treaty Principles Bill, I remind you all and cite the following government changes that have negative impact on Māori. The removal of Section 7AA of the Oranga Tamariki Act, disestablishment of the Māori Health Authority, removal of te tiriti considerations from Farm Act decision-making processes put in place to remove Māori Wards, which is why we're here this evening, from local government through referendum, minimisation of the use of te reo Māori in public institutions, the repeal of the smoke-free legislation that will adversely affect Māori, and more recently we've got the removal of te reo Māori from early school years reading books in our schools. If we would just consider just one of these things in isolation, we might be inclined to give the benefit of the doubt. However, some of these things show us that this is a cynical, deliberate program to undermine and disadvantage Māori in Aotearoa. We have Māori seats in Parliament. So why does this government think that these are unnecessary at local government level? This referendum only applies to Māori wards. It does not apply to other wards, local wards, or the number of wards. It just applies to Māori wards. So I can speak of my personal experience of colonisation. I grew up in a farming community, like Dame Farah. So my parents were farmers. We lived in a hill country area, and it was fairly remote. And the primary school that I attended was a local area school where more than 90% of the children were actually Pākehā. But the high school was different because it was an area school. It was a local school for the surrounding communities. Our school became the high school for a local Māori community. And so in the third form, we all of a sudden had a group of Māori students who arrived from another locality nearby. These students came to our school often in hand-me-down uniforms, often barefoot, and often without lunch. I became friends with a few of these young guys, and we played rugby together, but the friendships were discouraged outside the school gate. So remember, this is probably sort of the late 60s and early 70s. All of the Māori boys that came to my high school, they all left soon after they turned 15. And they all went to work at the freezing works in South Auckland to help support their whānau. The work that was available for Māori in the 60s and the 70s has now gone, leaving a disproportionate number of Māori living in urban environments without work, marginalised, welfare dependent, and living without dignity and hope. There was some Māori land that was actually left in the area where I grew up, but these parcels of land were small and unsustainable in terms of working farms. I also remind everybody here tonight too that Māori in Aotearoa are disproportionately overrepresented in negative social outcomes, health, education, justice, imprisonment rates and life expectancy, just to name a few. We see very starkly intergenerational disadvantage affecting Māori. I joined the New Zealand Police in '74, as I mentioned before, and I can tell you that for the time that I worked in the police for 44 years, the police disproportionately have policed high deprivation communities, and that has led to disproportionately high rates of Māori being imprisoned in New Zealand. The notion that if we keep arresting and imprisoning people, our communities will be safer is a delusion. It is simply not true. There is a direct correlation between the level of social capital and community cohesion and the community safety that we actually experience. Our city, this city, was the safest, at its safest level when government agencies work collaboratively to support community development, social capital and community cohesion. We had fewer gangs, more functional communities and neighbourhoods and less crime. And there is a lesson in that for us all, I think. Equitable outcomes for Māori in New Zealand have not changed a great deal, if at all, in the period that I'm talking about. Māori Wards on their own are not a solution in their own right, but are an enabler to bring Māori voices and perspective to the governance of our city. In recent decades, there has been some positive change in terms of empowering Māori. We're embracing Māori language and culture has become more prevalent and normalised. And the growth of the Māori economy post-treaty settlements is encouraging. But there is a conscious undermining of that progress that is taking place in New Zealand today. Māori make up approximately 17–20% of the population and often regarded negatively for the reasons which I've already outlined. When Māori are empowered and enabled, our nation will benefit, and we will be all the best for it. By supporting Māori Wards, there is nothing to fear and everything to gain. Ngā mihi nui.
Tēnā koe i aukupu, mātua tēnā koe i kaharongo ahau i o kari au roto. Kōrero tō tika ana koe ki taku ngākau. Nā reira, tēnā koe. One of the main takeaways for me within that is that even though it is quite hard sometimes to listen to or to go over some of the ways that Māori have been discriminated against, especially through policy, it's important that we do highlight the fact that that is still what is taking place today. Having a look at some of the history of the Māori Wards and taking it all the way back to 2021, if we're speaking about champions, for you, one of your champions was your māma there. And having a look at how many champions we've had in our political space, all the way from 1852 with the establishment of our 4 Māori electorates and our 4 Māori MPs, all the way up until now where we have our 7 Māori MPs today. And having a look in 2021 when the Ngāia Mahuta championed the Local Electoral Amendment Act, which basically said that Māori wards should be treated the same way as all other wards are treated. And then to what we're facing today with these local elections, which is the Māori Ward referendum, which is seeking to undo those changes that were made. And it's a continuation of discrimination through policy against Māori. Nā reira, tēnā koe i au kōrero. Up next, we have Dr. Ranjita Sengupta. From she's the president of Manawatū Multicultural Centre and a local business person. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. Warm greetings to you all. I'm really humbled here, really humbled. A little bit about my background. 21 years in New Zealand, 21 years in Palmerston North. I was born and raised in India, and I left India when I was 21 years old. So one more year, and I'm more Kiwi than Indian. Right? My average span of growing up, even in India, I never grew up in one place, so Palmerston North takes the cake. It grows on you. Moved every 3-4 years. I've lived in many different parts of the world. I was 21 when I left India. I went to the States to study. When I came here, I was in cancer research. I was a scientist in the US. When I came here, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So I went to Massey University and did my PhD there, molecular biologist. But for the last 9 years, I've been doing real estate. Thank you. So I'm a people person. I think the reason, and it was funny actually, I met Mr. John Key, Prime Minister, at one of those events, and I remember him saying that, oh, how come real estate? And I said, Shouldn't you be answering that? So this is funny because he resigned the next day. I did not know he was going to do that. But I remember my son and his friends, Auntie, what did you say to him? I'm like, I had nothing to do with it. So the next time I met Mr. Bill English, and the first thing I told him, Mr. Prime Minister, whatever you do, please don't resign tomorrow. I'll get a bad name. It'll be blamed on me. But, you know, having said that, I mean, every place I went to, it seemed that I've lived in the US. I lived in Europe as well, in a weird place you might think, Norway, of all places. I was doing a Doctor of Science there. Went back to the States, came here, and somehow New Zealand felt like home. I was 10 years old, and in our English chapter book, I went to a convent school, you know, run by Roman Catholic nuns, and I'm very, very privileged that I was born and raised in India because I grew up very secular. I have absolute respect for all religions, all kinds of people, and India is, you know, we have every religion you can think under the sun. And so I learned about Maori villages, and I remember the word, I called it whakarewarewa, because at that time, I did not know it was pronounced whakarewarewa, and I thought, oh, what a tongue twister. And I would love to visit that. If I ever get a chance in my life, I was 10 years old. I would love to visit. And that was one of the first places after coming to New Zealand, when I took a trip, that's where I went. And it was awesome. It was just, I just loved it. I just loved it. So, well, I did write a speech, kind of. Okay, so as president of the Manawatū Multicultural Council, I stand here today to affirm something that is deeply important. It's the value of every voice in shaping the future of our community. It's not just the future of our community, it's this nation, New Zealand, actually. So we live in a region, honestly, I mean, I made this my home, as you can say, 21 years. Not really. That is wonderfully diverse. As president of Manawatū Multicultural Council, I'll tell you, I see people from all different communities, more than 150 languages spoken here in Palmerston North. And as MMC does host events like Festival of Cultures, and you see different, and it's beautiful, it's diverse, right? Diversity is incredible. It's beautiful. If you know, variety is the spice of life, right? And people from many cultures, many languages. I speak just 5. And I'm trying to learn kōrero. I think it's high time, right? And that's why I was shocked when I heard about, not being taught that in school. Why not? I wish I had schooling here, because then I would have, put pressure. Yes, we need to learn this. I grew up trilingual. I think we can do bilingual here. Easily. Thank you. Yeah. So, and we have made Manawatū our home. So each of us, from different countries, we have our own stories, our own perspectives, our own hopes. But together, we make this place stronger. We make it richer, and we make it more connected. But before all of us, and that's what we shouldn't forget ever, before the waves of migration that brought our families here, this land has always been the home of tangata whenua, the Māori people. Their voice is not just another voice in the mix, it is the first voice of Aotearoa, right? So it carries with it history, its identity, and responsibility that we as a nation, we have to honor and cherish. That is why Māori Wards matter. They are not about exclusion. They are not about special treatment. They are about fairness, about ensuring that Māori voices are not only present, but also influential where decisions are made. Hey, I'll be the first to tell you, I don't understand politics. Maybe that's why I would be a good politician. Just kidding. My grandfather actually, you might have heard the name Gandhi. So I think you all have. But yes, my grandfather actually he worked closely with Gandhi. So I come from a political family, and when my family in India tell me, you should join, you would be great in Indian politics, I'm like, I'm not going to be assassinated. I don't want to be. So no, not Indian politics for me. But, and I don't understand politics because I don't understand half the things why we humans do to ourselves. I don't understand. We are supposed to be civilized. Oh well. As someone who leads a council dedicated to ensuring that ethnic communities are seen, heard, and respected, I know how important it is to have representation at the table. When people feel their voices are ignored, that's when division grows, you know. But when they see their voices reflected in decision making, the truth is built, participation grows, and communities thrive. Right? That's when communities thrive. Māori Wards are a way of saying, we hear you, we see you, and we honor our shared responsibility under Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Just as we, the multicultural communities here, seek recognition and a place at the table, so too must we stand shoulder to shoulder with Māori to ensure their voice is not diminished. It needs to be strengthened. Keeping Māori Wards is not only about representation, it is about justice, it is about partnership, it is about the kind of future we want for our children. A future where every community, every culture, and every people can stand proud, knowing that their voices matter. So let us stand together. Let us uphold Māori Wards, not just as a political mechanism, but as a symbol of respect, fairness, and a shared belonging. Because only when all voices are heard can we truly call ourselves a democracy, right? Now, to finish up with the words of the Dalai Lama. If you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. Ngā mihi nui.
Ngā mihi, Farah. What, 21 years in New Zealand and 21 years in Palmerston North, did you say?
Yes.
Wow, okay, you really like it here, huh? Me too, by the way, so yeah, kapa. Okay, our next awesome speaker is Bridget Bell, Councillor Bridget Bell. She is a Māori Ward Councillor in the Ngā Tapuae o Matangi Māori Ward for Manawatū District Council. Tēnā koe te tuakana.
I te tuatahi I tautanga mihi a ki ngā manawa o te whenua, rangi tāne, tukana mihi kia koutou. Tukana mihi kia koe tūnange mo te whakatūwhare I tēnei wānanga, I tēnei whakawhiti kōrero. Hūnina mihi ki ngā māngai o tēnā pai o tēnā pai o tēnā pai o tēnā pai o tēnā koutou. Ko waio, he uri ahau no Ngāti Kauwhata, no te reo, no Ngāti Rauka ki te tonga, no Ngāti Hawa, no Ngāti Maniapoto. Ki te tau tuku Wairoa, ko Taranaki tuku Ukai Pōtanga, nō reira ko te Wāri Māori o Manawatū. Ko Raiha tuku ngō Māori, ko Bridget Bell tuku ngō Pākehā. Tēnā koutou. I just want to acknowledge our Māori Queenie when she said, claim your Māori name, so that's why I put Raiha tonight first. So ngā mihi kia koutou. I too feel humbled to be on this panel. When I came in and saw tonight, I was like, whew, whew. And so I just want to thank you all for coming, and thank you all for coming. It's such a special moment actually to see the solidarity in the room. But tonight's kōrero that I'm going to give tonight is actually for those that are on the fence. So that's the space that I'm going to operate tonight from. Because I know we're converted, but I know there's a camera there and there might be some watching that aren't. So in order for me to give that kōrero, I need to give some honest talk. And that starts with looking at what the representation of Māori in Aotearoa looks like, particularly in local government. When we had binding referendums before Nanaia came in and gave that beautiful clause in our legislation, from 2002 to 2021, we had 24 brave councils step forward and say, we want Māori wards. Out of those 24 councils and the binding referendums in their community, only 2 succeeded. That is the reality of these referendums. They're not designed to have fairness. They're not designed for communities to have a voice. They're a political play to get rid of Indigenous voices and Māori voices at the table. And I think this is where we need to start having honest conversations within our own communities. When politicians play, it's actually communities that pay. We pay. We pay the financial price. We also pay for the price around the division of these conversations, because a lot of the time referendums are set up to have immature conversations and never the fair ones. And already we're starting to see that rhetoric. We're being accused that these wards are race-based. I challenge that whakaaro. I challenge that idea that this is a race-based ward. I always say these are community-based wards. Māori are also part of your community. They're a community of urban people, rural people, mokopuna. We're intergenerational. We have hapu, we have iwi, we have marae, we have schools, we have religions. We have been part of our community contributing. It's never been a race-based ward. It's been a te tiriti ward. It is a community ward. And I think one of the things that I want to touch on tonight, and it's a word that you hear often for those who are non-Māori, you'll hear the words manu motuhake, and you might identify that that's solely just for Māori. That's a universal concept. It's your own self-determination. It's your own sovereignty. You made the choice, your choice, to live in your communities. You made the choice to come here tonight. So by coming here tonight, you made the choice to care about everyone in your community. And even though the referendums are barbaric and cruel, we have the opportunity by our votes to choose for all of us, to choose for equity, to choose for diversity. When I look at this triennium in particular, we had 65 Māori ward councillors that entered local government. Those Māori wards meant that we once had 5% representation in local government to 22%. It is merely a crumb. It is just the start. And must I say, I'm going to mihi to the 65 Māori ward councillors, our mayors and our chairs that sit across our local government for all the mahi they've done in one of the most politically divisive and challenging times that local government has seen. I think this referendum gives us opportunity to have really honest conversations about our history, but also have honest conversations about our present. When I look at my own council, and I'll contextualise it for Manawatū, we have only ever had one Māori that sat in our council. Out of hundreds of councillors that have been on Manawatū Council, we had one in our urban seat. That's not because Māori didn't try. That's because the community weren't ready to accept us. And if I'm going to be really honest, they're still not. In Manawatū, they're still struggling. There are still allergic reactions to our presence, which is interesting because we've been there the longest. It's so interesting when the visitors start having allergic reaction to mana whenua, but hey aha, we're on our journey. But there's something I want to bring up tonight, and that's the idea that when Māori step to the table, that we only bring who our constituents are. And of course they are important. But we actually serve all of the community. We represent Māori communities, but we serve all of them. We expect that of one another, because that's our manaaki. That's actually how you all came to be here, that we looked after you first. We were your first kaitiaki. We were your first hosts, and we'll continue to do that regardless of where you sit politically, and regardless of whether you support us or not. That is our responsibility as Māori ward councillors. I think there is a very evident reality that we have, that our democracy is extremely fragile. if we were to apply the referendums to a global scale, where the majority get to dictate for the minority, where the bigger populated countries get to dictate the smaller ones, where the strongest survive, New Zealand Aotearoa wouldn't survive a referendum. We know this because we're the smallest. So why are we doing it here? Why are we treating ourselves like this? And this is where I say, start having conversations about the political game that's going on here. Because we're starting to think that our politicians, a small group, a small minority of them have the power. They don't. Communities have the power. We have the power to make a choice, and that's why I say, me pōti, don't forget to vote. Don't forget to tell your whānau and your friends and your neighbours and your colleagues the importance of voting. That is where we get to shift power. Because the reality is, in New Zealand history, power doesn't like to give up power. There has been a massive imbalance of power in Aotearoa for a long time. There's a massive imbalance of power in local government when we had binding referendums, hence why only 5% of Māori held space in councils. And I want to mihi to those 5%. That must have been a lonely space to be in. And I want to mihi to Pāwaramu Te Aweoe from Aotearoa here, who held space for many years, and all the others in Aotearoa. Because even with just the 162 of us now, there are moments where it's a bit shaky. But at the same time, we are so lucky because we have tangata tiriti and tangata taui we have stood by us. So I want to mihi to all you tonight and all those that are in the recording that have volunteered your time, your aroha to step bravely into our space, make sure that we're not alone, because our fight is your fight. Ko tātou ne? I think one of the things that if I was to have a personal reflection on, and I don't want it to sound like, you know, not every part of our community matters, but if I were to look upon our mokopuna and how amazing they are, if you look across the border at all our kura, look at the way they're performing, they're just fantastic and they're extremely politically aligned. They're politically intelligent. I would say that we've got some wonderful minds coming through. Let us remember that they're watching us. They hear everything we say. So it's really, really important that you're not silent, because actually when you're silent, that is your vote. So start exercising your voice, let our babies hear your position, let your position be strong. And if I could leave anything, it would be, if you still don't know after tonight and after the panel of speakers, go and speak to the communities that it affects the most. Go and speak to those. Because when you're voting, you have a responsibility to know that your vote impacts Māori. So come speak to them. Go speak to your local marae, your local ward councillors, your local kaiako who are Māori, those that you work with. It's really, really important for you to ask them, what does Māori Wards mean to you? How can I help you? Nō reira, tukuna mihi kia koutou. Don't forget me pōti, toi tū te taiao, toi tū te tiriti, and toi tū te wāri Māori.
Tēnā koe te tuakana. I know that you just gave a mihi to all of the current Māori Ward councillors around the country and also those 5% who have held space before you, but I would like to just give a huge mihi to you. I te mea mohi wana hau, ka noho kauana koe ki runga i tērā tēpu. E noho kauana koe a tīnana nei, engari e kore rawa koe noho kauana a wairua nei. Nā reire mihi ana ki a koe te tuakana. And yes, having a look as well at 2022, what our voter turnout percentage was, what do we think that might have been? Awful. Yeah, tika tau. 2022 voter turnout percentage was 36.7%, which is why it is so incredibly important that we don't leave these conversations just in these rooms, right? But we take it and we have these conversations with our friends, and like Bridget was saying, we have these conversations with people who are on the fence, who aren't sure. We make sure that we educate them and we just let them know how important it is to make sure that our Māori Ward councillors stay. Unfortunately, that matter is being put to referendum And as my tuakana said, historically, that hasn't turned out too well for Māori, right? The stats that she shared, 24 councils wanted to establish Māori wards before Nanaia Mahuta championed those amendments in 2021, and only 2 were successful. Having a look at who mostly turns out to, who votes in local elections as well, a lot of the time it's the people who vote against these things. It's older, home-owning people, right? So we really need to ensure that we're having these conversations with our whānau. We're having these conversations with our friends. And when it's voting period, I think it opens up tomorrow, right? We're making sure, maybe we can even make it a social thing, like talk with your mates about it, talk with your whānau, have a chat, fill it out together, take it down together, you know? Just do what we all need to do what we can. It's not the responsibility of our councillors. It's not just the responsibility of our mayor. It's everyone's responsibility to ensure that we do what we can when it comes to retaining Māori wards. Ka pai, tēnā koutou. Next up, we have Farah Debi Marshall-Lobb, who is our current Deputy Mayor and one of our awesome Māori Ward councillors within the Tapuae Māori Ward. Tēnā koe, Farah.
Tēnā koe, te putiputi o tira, tēnā tātou I hui mai nei I tēnei pō. Tēnā koe, Peter, nau anō I whakawātea I a tātou mā te karakia, ka te kohoki, kua ea tēnā. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou te ohu rangatira I konei I tēnei pō nā koutou anō I whakatakoto kōrero. Nō reira, tēnā koe Farah, tēnā koe Pāpet, tēnā koe Whairanjita, e raiha ngā mihi nui ki a koe te putiputi, tēnā koe te koromātua, ngā mihi o tira ki a koutou katoa. O kuhua, e tei whanaunga, ngā kaimahi katoa te kaunihira, koutou e hāpai ana, e ngā kaunui ana. It's an honour for me to stand here today to speak in support of Māori wards. It's a vital step towards equity, representation, and honouring te tiriti in our local democracy. And I can't argue with anything that everyone else has said. Te papai o ia, Palmerston North, is a city rich in diversity, history and resilience. We are home to vibrant Māori communities, including mana whenua and whānau from iwi from all over Aotearoa. Yet for too long, Māori voices have been underrepresented in decision-making and spaces that shape our city's future. Māori wards, as mentioned by my colleagues, are not about division. They are about inclusion. They're about ensuring that tangata whenua have a seat at the table, not just as participants, but as decision makers. Māori wards are a mechanism to uphold the promise that is enshrined of partnership that's enshrined in Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and to reflect the unique status of Māori as tangata whenua in our governance structures. In 2022, we know Palmerston North City Council demonstrated courageous leadership and a commitment to equity in establishing Te Puao, our Māori ward. This bold and necessary action affirmed our dedication to honouring Te Tiriti o Waitangi and strengthening Māori representation in local governance. This was not just a procedural change, it was a statement of values. It was about saying that we in Palmerston North are going to tautoko tangata whenua, that we will tautoko mana whenua, and we want to honour Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Māori wards help ensure that decisions about housing, climate resilience, education and urban development are informed by Māori values, Māori perspectives and Māori aspirations. Those that until now have been historically sidelined. Māori wards help to build a city that is not only inclusive but wise, drawing on mātauranga Māori that guide us through complex challenges. And we know there have been many complex challenges and there's still more to come. Some may ask, why do we need separate wards? I think Raiha has answered that very aptly. The answer is simple. Equity does not mean treating everyone the same. It means recognising different needs and histories, responding with fairness. Māori Wards are a response to generations of exclusion and pathways for genuine partnership. Palmerston North has always been a city of progress, from the revitalisation of Te Marae o Hine to the growing visibility of Te Reo Māori in our public spaces. We are moving forward. Māori Wards are a part of that journey, a journey towards a city where every voice matters and where our governance reflects the people it serves. Of note, Palmerston North's Māori population is increasing in both number and as a percentage of total population. In the 2023 census, 20.7% of our population were Māori, and that has continued since to grow. One other piece of interesting information from that census is that the higher percentage of our city's population speaks Te Reo Māori, compared with regionally and nationally. In 2023, 5.2% of Palmerston North's population spoke Te Reo Māori. Yay, ti hei. The Te Reo Māori teacher and me and former kura kaupapa tumuaki sort of was like jumping out of my seat when I heard that, compared with 4.7% for the region and 4.3% nationally. Given the trends over the past decade, that figure has likely increased significantly. Māori Wards work because they ensure Māori voices are heard, respected and empowered, not just for the benefit of Māori, but for everyone and the well-being of everyone in our community. To quote the Waitangi Tribunal Y3365, Māori Wards are a matter of justice, not politics. The Crown failed to uphold key principles of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, including active protection, equity and partnership. The support and aroha of our tangata tiriti whānau, as mentioned earlier, strengthens our mahi and reminds us of the true partnership, that true partnership is lived through action, compassion and shared responsibility. To conclude, and I'm going in and out here of English and Māori, mā te Māori a kaupapa Māori e toto mai ki te tēpū nei. Māori must have the role of advancing Māori values, perspectives and aspirations at the council table. Kei tēnei rohi tonu ngā whakautu wero, ngā rongoa ki te haihaitanga. Kei tēnei rohi, mai rā nō te whanaungatanga o whānau, o hapu, o iwi. Within our city, enduring networks and relationships amongst whānau, hapu, iwi and the wider communities already thrive. These connections hold deep knowledge, lived experiences and the strength needed to meet any challenge with confidence and care. Kāti te wehiwehi, kāti te kaikiri, e kore e pāhuri i te wehiwehi, engari tui tuia te whenua, te tangata whenua. It is imperative that we actively challenge division and bigotry, fostering a culture where inclusivity, equity and mutual respect is not just ideal, but it's a lived reality. Let us come together, tangata whenua, tangata tiriti, this council and all members of our community in the spirit of partnership, respect and shared purpose. Tui tuia te tangata tiriti, tui tuia te kaunihera nei, haumi e, hui e, tāi ki e. Tēnā koutou e te whānau. Kia ora.
Ai mihi ana ki a koe Farah, not only for your speech tonight, but also for the incredible and awesome work that you and Matua Rowley have carried out within these 3 years as Māori Ward councillors. Next up we have Mayor Grant Smith. Tēnā koe.
Always tough going after Debi. I said to Bridget, man, you were good. And then Debi goes and lifts it another level. Kia ora tātou, nau mai, haere mai. Ko rangatira, Grant Smith, aho. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Look, can I just acknowledge the panel members here? Farah, lovely to see you again. Didn't the Cyclones go well? Eh? And the Turbos. I forgot your husband's the coach. Hasn't Debi done a great job as our Deputy Mayor? Pat's always been a supporter. Probably a bit sad that he's retiring. And I look around the room and Ranjetta, thank you for your comments, you know. So many multicultural people here. And Bridget, congratulate you, do so well in fielding. It is tough. And we sometimes look across the border and I say to my colleagues at morning tea, Bridget's done well. It's a tough gig, but look, you are breaking down some barriers. So I'd actually prepared a few notes because I thought I'd be talking to Winston Peters' mob, but it's a bit of a no, because it's about trying to speak to people that perhaps are sitting on the fence or are on the other side, and it's going into some uncomfortable spaces. And actually, because all of you're all converted, and that's great, and you've got to tell everybody as well. But it's when you go to places, you know, and I don't want to generalise, but you go to a golf club or you go to it's maybe a club or a probus club or something, and you've got to be able to say to them the benefits of why Māori Wards. And sometimes you've got to break down the myths and the misinformation. And look, I just want to say a couple of things here, because I think it's been so eloquently put why we're supporting this. But look, Palmerston City Council did support Māori Wards, and you know that was 4/5 of our council, or even 4.5/5 of our council supported and said yes. I think that's quite big in a city, in a metropolitan or big regional city. And also 3/4 or 30 out of 42 candidates that were interviewed that are going for council at the moment said they supported Wards, and I know a number of you are here tonight too. So thank you for you turning up here tonight. I think it shows support. Look, I'll be honest, I do think the Wards are a blunt tool to try and get representation, but it is the cards we've been dealt with. So we've got to make the most of it. But they've worked here. They really have worked here. They don't necessarily work everywhere, but they've worked here, and we should fight hard to keep them. We have an exemplar relationship with Rangitane. And as Debi said, our partnership goes back 150, 160 years. And it's backed by that manaakitanga, which was shown to early settlers. I read a lot of history, and you know, early Scandinavian settlers here really struggled, and Māori fed them, made sure that they had somewhere, a whare to sleep in at times, and they really did a great job of showing manaakitanga, which they do today. And I think that has gone through over the decades. Also, there's been no conflict here, and I think that's really important too. Possibly one of the few places in the North Island of New Zealand. And dialogue has been good between Māori and non-Māori in this city. Yes, there can be some things that could have been improved over the years, but in general, it has been a happy place. And I think that's a reason there's a statue of an Indigenous leader out in Te Maraehine and not Lord Palmerston. No, seriously, I'm serious there. 1906 was a very, very different time in colonial New Zealand, and this city and Rangitane chose to put a statue of Te Piti up there, and I think that showed Palmerston North was unique even then, and it still is today. So, as I said, I'd put these notes as if there was a few doubters in the crowd. So look, the sky hasn't fallen in. You hear all these You know, no more cost. We haven't spent any more money. Although if you talk to some others down the road there, they think we've spent too much money. But in all seriousness, we've taken a bicultural lens over things. And I think that's been, since I've been on council, I think that's been magnificent, because it just gives us, and it's all been really, really positive. As I said, it doesn't cost any more. And like all trusted partners, it's okay to disagree at times. So it's not, 99% of the time we're all on the same page. But it's okay to have that odd little disagreement. Debbie and I disagree on the odd thing.
Stop it,
But also, rangitane have contributed hugely, and Māori in general have contributed hugely to our city. And in more recent times, again, things have been invested in here. Rangitane's treaty settlement, everything, it stays here. They never leave. They invest here, and they're continuing to invest here. And again, I was writing these notes thinking there'd be some different people in the crowd. But look, if you take Tapuae Anzac Park as an example, that is a fantastic joint venture project, which so much misinformation. And I'd have to say, even from some of my colleagues at times that don't support it, it is a $15 million project, joint venture project, where the council or the residents put in $2 and Rangitane put in $1. Now, where I come from, that's a good deal, and it's a site of significance for our local mana whenua. Currently, it's a car park that deals in drugs. I mean, seriously, to do something better with it can only be a good thing. So, and it's going to be turned into a regional visitor attraction, which I think will be so positive for our city. It'll give mana to our rangitane and the council and for all residents of Palmerston North. And as I said, I can only think of only good things there. But look, I'm not going to say too much more other than please get out and talk to people, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable. I did it at a men's shared health forum on Saturday morning, and I was getting, I wouldn't say attacked, but they were giving me a bit of a hard time about Te Tapuae. And again, the misinformation, 22 consultants, it's costing 20 million, all of this, council's putting up all the money, what are Rangitane doing? So you just have to break down some of those barriers at times. And yeah, the misinformation that continues to be spread. But, ask them, how do their kids react with Māori, or their grandchildren? I think it'll be very different to how they are reacting. So I'll leave you with, when we decide together, we will thrive together. Kia ora. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, I te me. I keep wanting to say mea. It's not mea, it's me. Don't read it how it's written, it's me. Yes, me. Ka pai. It was really awesome to hear from you and your perspective firsthand as to the benefits that our Māori Ward councillors have brought to Palmerston North City Council, so thank you very much for that. It's my favourite part because I get to listen to the questions and I don't have to answer anything. It's the Q&A time. So, are you going to walk around with the mic, are you? I'm going to give this to the speakers, or you're going to give that to the speakers. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. So Ben here, what you're going to do is you're going to raise your hand if you have a partai, and then Ben will come around with the mic and direct your questions to one of our awesome speakers. And what I'm going to do is hand this to them. And we can get on the way. Check, check. So, I'll give this to you guys, and what you do is you just hand it to whoever thing asks the question. I'll send the papa.
Sweet. Any opening bids or no? Questions? Oh, easy crowd. Yeah. Oh, is that? No. I've got a question. Grant and Debi, what is the most common objection you hear to Māori wards, to keeping Māori wards? And what do you usually say to people who are asking that?
Well, actually, it's quite interesting because I've had a few people say to me, "Oh, Debi, you could stand in the general ward. You'd be all right in the general ward." And I've said to them, "But you know, I'm Māori and I want to stand in the Māori ward so that I can promote Māori values and Māori perspective, and also I want to see that integrated within the decision making." And it's quite interesting, but because they say, "Oh, you could be both," and I say, "Well, no, I think that that would be then sort of getting two for the price of one in a way." You know, I've been like that. I've been a school teacher for 40 plus years, and if I could frame it like this, when I was at a school, when I was teaching a mainstream school, every time there was something that went down things Māori, I got pulled out of class and I had to deal with that. Or if there was something happening, I would have to attend to that or do the unit of study for that. And suddenly you're pulled into two different ways, and that's how I've felt. So I want to focus on that role of promoting Māori values and perspectives, but also I know that I'm there and here for everyone, just like the rest of the councillors. We're all there for everyone. Big mihi to my colleagues who are out there, and also to the candidates who are here. Kia ora.
Ben, what was the question again? Debi
What is the
diverted
most
things,
common-
as she does.
What is the most common objection you hear to Māori wards, and what do you normally say to people around that?
Yeah, so why do they get a special vote, you know, or why is there a separate ward? I thought there was an article in the paper actually from a professor from Massey. I'm not sure if he's here, but he did a great, some great comments there where he said, look, and I think you touched on it too, Bridget, where there's several different wards now. There's, you know, urban wards and there's rural wards, and generally Māori have been disenfranchised. They can't, you know, they generally don't have a voice at the table. And I came back to my comment earlier when I finished. How, you know, and sometimes you can't change the views of some people. They just fixated on, you know, the old we're one people, one vote, which is it comes out all the time. But I say to them, you know, how do your kids react now to Māori or your grandkids? Because it is quite different. I think of my kids, very different, you know, and I've had the benefit of 10 years with, I was going to say next to Debi in the chamber, but in certainly the last 3 years and last 10 years with Wiramu, bless his heart. But no, they've taught me a lot of things. But my kids have just grown up naturally with that, and they react differently. So I think we are changing. I hope, like anything, that we get through this, and I have a sneaking suspicion we may. It'll be close, but you've got to get out there and talk to people. And even if it's a little bit difficult, and just say, so why wouldn't you vote yes? Yeah. So, sorry, big long answer, but anyway.
Thank you.
Tēnā tātou katoa. This question is actually for Bridget, just because I want people to hear about it. As the Māori ward for Manawatū District Council, which possibly isn't quite as progressive as Palmerston or City Council, Bridget, can you tell us some of the changes that have occurred at Manawatū District Council solely as a result of there being a Māori ward councillor?
Inui te pātai, thank you for knowing it. I want to give context to the answer is, for me as a Māori ward, I believe that Māori ward councillors were not at the front. We're actually behind our people. So I'm behind Te Kōrero, the 12 marae. I'm behind our kura. They are the voices, I'm the adversarial part. I'm the instrument. So what we've done as a collective in Manawatū is we have activated, because we finally have a seat, I'll give an example. Every council has a long-term plan. That's a legislative requirement. Before we had a Māori ward, we never participated in that process. We didn't even know about it. We didn't realise that was the vehicle to equity. That was at least a space you could voice the needs, your infrastructure needs, the needs of your marae, hapu, kura. But since then, we had all marae participate. Put in a submission. We had our kura submit, we had our kapahaka rōpū from Te Reo submit, we had individual whānau submit, we had organisation services Māori submit, we had Pākehī business submit. They all submit on the needs, and the outcome of their participation was that there was change. There was a policy that came in called the Marae and Hapu policy, where they finally get funding, equitable funding to every single one of the 17 rural villages that had funding for 14 years. We are finally matched annually for our infrastructure and for our marae and hapu, and that wouldn't have been done had the iwi and hapu not stepped into local government space. And it's actually a very, it's a scary space. It's intimidating to come into a room full of people that you don't know, and you're voicing and you're being vulnerable about the needs of your community. And so I want to mihi to all the marae and all our whānau that came through. That's just one policy. But even the attitudes have shifted. Like, we're known to be non-progressive. We're like the opposite. We're the different cousins. We're those kind of cousins in Manawatū, right? Pāmi are known to be like progressive and multicultural and diverse. In Manawatū, well, we're just all kinds of colourful up there. We're special. And, it was a miracle. But when the Te Tiriti submission bill came in, I knew Pāmi would rock. I knew they would rock. And I looked at my lucky lot, and I was like, woohoo, we're going to better have a debate. But what was interesting, because they had heard from marae and hapu, they decided to take a position that was different to their own beliefs, different to the political parties that they belonged to, and they supported our submission, which was protecting mana whenua, was protecting us. I even heard one of them say, I just want us to protect our Māoris. And I was like, we're going to work on that, but yes, you know what, I'll take it. We're going to work on the Māori bit, but we're going to work on that, but yeah, we'll take it. If you're coming this way, one step forward, right? One step forward. And I think, to have a unanimous support in making sure we protect mana whenua in my council is a massive, whoo, it's a miracle. The Ātuas came in that day. And I think further to that, there has been these pivots, these moments of pivots, because they're starting to humanise us. Before they were intimidated us. We had ACT Party and people that, never ever would stand on marae, come and visit Paupa Te Tia Marae a couple of weeks ago to meet the candidates. How amazing is that they know that we will manaki them no matter what. And they did. They ate with us, they spoke with us, they spoke freely. They were safe from the marae. Not from me, but the marae. I gave them a little go, but the manaki of the marae was fantastic. And so, I have full hope. Like, I know Pāmi are going to rock it. Pāmi are awesome. But I still have hope in Manawatū, because I've seen the shifts. But the biggest shift, the biggest win, was having our kura come and spend a day at council for them, and they all rushed to the mayor's seat. They can't wait to be a mayor. And I said to them, no, go for the CE role. It pays more money. And they all got excited. They were like, what do I do to become a CE? But how amazing is it that the ao rangatahi Māori no longer see this space as an intimidating space? They can see themselves in it. Why? Because we're finally there. We're finally there.
Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Abdul Rashid. I am from Myanmar, and I am one of the former refugees who live in Palmerston North for 11 years. This is my fourth time for the general council elections. And then my question is I'm also keep learning a politician. So it's last general elections, I saw the 2 referendums, and then, as far as my understanding is made by the federal government. And then this local election, I couldn't understand who made this decision, like Māori Wards referendums. you know. So if someone can give me an answer, you know, when I read this referendum, I was so shocked why this referendum can be and why and who make it.
Thank you. First in, first served, I think.
All right, good question. And that's why they shouldn't meddle. So it's central government, and via legislation they overturned the previous law of binding Māori Wards, and they said it's all going back to the drawing board, and it's going to be a referendum. And I think was it you, Bridget, that said referendums are not going to be that great for Māori. And look, yeah, central government did what they do best at the moment, which is meddle with us. Yeah.
Any other questions? We might have time for one more. Sir.
Tēnā tātou te whare. Tēnei te mihi nā rangatira ino mai ki tērā mō te mana kōrero i tēnei ui, ana kai karakia tēnei te mihi ki a koe e Peter, a koutou mā. Ko ai au, ko whituro patarai tuku ingoa, he uri o hauno nā te rūnui, nā te tūwhare toa, te iwi moru. Tēnā koutou. I've got to stand because I was at the last who we were talking about at St. Michael's and the library, and there weren't many of us, or many of you that are here tonight, were there. I'm pretty good at faces. So this is a good outcome for tonight, because back then, we didn't have a panel. I think I got up and had a lot of conversations with many of the people who were there, and they went for that. So back then to now, I want to ask the panel, what's changed? Because back then, we were saying, because I've heard the why, and we're the converted. It's the people on the camera that need to think, knowing also that participation in voting amongst people is at its lowest at all time. So what's changed to the panel? Kia ora tātou.
I'll kick it off. I think there's more awareness, and I've seen that sign down the back there, decide together, thrive together, vote to keep Māori Wards. I've seen that sign everywhere, which is really good. So well done, Ben and the team, for getting the voice out there. Because last time when we had 24 wards and we had a group of outsiders come into our city, Hobson's Pledge, and they, really ripped everybody up and managed to get a vote just across the line. And I know it was just because it took our electoral officer 3 counts to get it, and they only got it over the line by a couple of votes, which does give me hope that with a more honest conversation, with a more informed conversation, that there might be people out there that do sit on the fence that might say, yeah, it's going okay, why would we change this? And I'm just hoping that all of you can influence 1 or 2 people. So Sarah, I think there's more understanding of what the issues are now, and I do hope that more people, I have a gut feeling more people will vote, but we've just got to get to the middle people that just don't know what it's all about.
Grant, I totally agree with you when it comes to awareness. I think, when I came here 21 years ago, the population of this city was 55,000. Now it's 95,000 plus. And when I go to the Christmas parades, you see the many ethnicities. And I think the awareness in those ethnicities, it's very important. That's why I love the fact that, I'm honored that you called me. And I'm very glad because, as I said, Māori voice is the first voice of Aotearoa. It's very important that people know that, understand that. And as I said, I'm an immigrant myself, came here, but I came with that awareness that I'm coming to New Zealand. I made New Zealand my home, but I also knew that I've been blessed that you welcomed me into your space, and we've made this our home. I think that awareness among the other ethnicities that are here, that they understand that this is actually, that's the first voice. It has to be strengthened. So that's really important. And that awareness that we thrive together, it's very important.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Last question, being aware of time. And it touches, a lot of people have said we need to talk to the people outside this room. So why should I care? People often say, you know, I'm open to the idea of Māori wards, or I think they're a good idea, but I'm focused on paying the bills, I've got family stuff to take care of, or, you know, I'm part of a church, I'm part of a rugby club. What does that have to do with politics? Why should we care about it? So I'd like to hear from Farah, and then, first in, first served again.
I just made eye contact with Doug Titchens in the back there. You know, I'm keen to see what we can do to get some of our rugby passionate communities to see things differently, and to, you know, like, they're all about the haka and what Māori contribute to rugby, so how about we just expand that to what the Māori wards can contribute to our communities? And I think that's an easy kind of thing for them to kind of shift their mindset from, oh, I get it, you know, like, and I think sometimes that's the issue, is people are just in their own little bubbles and in their own little worlds, and we're all trying to survive at times, but it's just about seeing how what we do in this environment can expand to other environments, and that we can do what we can to try and just create this sense of partnership. See it as not being a threat. You know, it's not a threat. And I think that is often the biggest thing that I hear. So yeah, Doug, we'll have a chat later.
I'll intercept the mic on the way down to Grant, but I think the message really is around, what does it mean to you? Well, I think there's actually a growing feeling in New Zealand that things aren't actually going particularly well. And if we just live with the status quo, then of course nothing is going to change. So Māori Wards, as I mentioned earlier on, is actually, it's a mechanism. It is a piece of the puzzle in terms of the empowerment of the entire population, not just the privileged few. So, and I think there is a general understanding by more people in the community that if you actually want things to be better, then you have to do things change. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So that's the difference.
Also, empower your own communities. I'm looking around the room. There's so many multicultural people here. All of you vote, yes, you've got to. Get round all your different ethnic groups and do vote. We've got to empower the vote. Māori as well, traditionally haven't been great at voting, and I know why, but please do, everyone vote. To the church groups here, and there's a lot of faiths in Palmerston North, and I know most of them, if not all of them, support this. So you've all got to vote as well. So and the university, the students, they all understand. You've all got to vote as well. And if we do that, especially the multicultural community, because that's thousands and thousands of people in our city. So please, if you all get out and vote, you will make a difference. Don't think, oh, my vote's not worth it. It absolutely is, because we might win this by one vote, and that will matter. That will matter.
Ka pai? Ka pai, kia ora. All right, I think that about brings us to the end of our event. And it's clear, right, what we need to do after this, when we go home, when we're done here, is we need to make sure that we're having conversations with our whānau, with our friends, and that we make sure we vote ourselves. Talk to others. One other thing you can do is you can volunteer, and you can speak to Ben. There's this fella up front about volunteering.
We have a sign-up sheet at the back.
Oh, there we go. Ka pai. So sign-up sheet. It's an awesome campaign to be a part of. Yeah, very cool. So, once again, thank you all so much for finding the time to come tonight, and to our awesome speakers. Ka tukuna te mauri ki a koe te tūngani kia whakakapia.
Kia ora.
Hopu takatoa ngā kōrero, ne? Tātou hui nei tēnei rumai mihi ana. Koutou e mātakitaki mai ngā vote. Ne, me kaua tātou e noho hei kai patu mō tātou. I te mutunga iho, kai noho tātou ko tātou anō te he. Me mutu te rāhuatanga koutou mātakitaki mai nā i te facing book me rā atu mea. Whānau, he rā kōrero ki reira. Tēnā tātou i tēnei pō, tēnā hoki koutou kai a kurangatira. Akāti, kia whakairihia te tapu o e nei kōrero ki te tāhuhu o rangi nui e tuake nei ka whakamaua ki a tīna. Haumi e hui e. Tēnā tātou.